Hello everyone, today we are going to prepare sourdough starter. To grow natural yeast, we need just two ingredients, flour and water. Let's see the flour. Most of the flour available on the market has been chlorine bleached, and the bleaching process kills most of the natural bacteria on the wheat, making it difficult for us to cultivate yeast. You need to choose unbleached flour. I usually use unbleached whole wheat flour, which contains more nutrients and potential microorganisms in the bran and germ, helping us to grow yeast more effectively. As for water, if your tap water is drinkable, it likely contains chlorine, which is used to kill bacteria and is not good for yeast growth. You can collect tap water in a glass bottle and let it sit in the sun for a day before using it. You can also use boiled and cooled water or filtered tap water. Once we have the flour and water ready, we can get started. Day 1. Mix 10 grams of flour and 10 grams of water. I divide the process into two stages. 1. Cultivating yeast while killing off unwanted bacteria, and 2. Increasing yeast activity. Although these two stages happen simultaneously, separating them makes the process more targeted. Stir well, cover with a small plate, and place in a warm spot. You can place it next to a hot water kettle. If the room temperature is low, you can put it in a lunchbox with some paper underneath it on top of the kettle to increase the temperature. You can also place it in a microwave or oven. The ideal fermentation temperature is between 24 degrees Celsius and 28 degrees Celsius. Mine is at 24 degrees Celsius. Below this, fermentation will slow down. Day 2. After 24 hours, there won't be much visible change. Flip it over, and you may see tiny bubbles, just a hint of fermentation. It should smell neither sour nor bad, just like raw dough. Add 5 grams of water and 5 grams of flour to the cup and stir. Continue fermenting. Day 3. You'll notice more small bubbles. However, these bubbles are not all from yeast fermentation. Once flour and water are mixed, and with the right temperature, various bacteria are activated. Some are the ones we want, while others are not. You'll notice a slight sourness and a stale smell. At this stage, don't focus on the height change of the dough. Continue feeding with an additional 10 grams of water and 10 grams of flour. Yesterday, we added 5 grams each, while today we increase the amount as it's a gradual process. Day 4. The changes are more noticeable and the stale smell becomes stronger. Various bacteria and microorganisms are competing for resources and multiplying rapidly. Take out 10 grams of dough and add 10 grams each of water and flour. Day 5. Fermentation continues, and the sourness increases, and the stale smell starts to diminish. Though it may not look much different, the dough has undergone a significant change. The mixture of flour and water activated various bacteria, including lactic acid bacteria. As the lactic acid bacteria multiply, they produce more lactic acid, gradually creating an acidic environment that inhibits the growth of unwanted bacteria. From now on, the harmful bacteria will decrease, while the yeast and lactic acid bacteria, which are good friends, can coexist and grow. Take out 10 grams of dough and add 10 grams of water and 10 grams of flour. Each feeding provides nutrients for the lactic acid bacteria and yeast while maintaining the dough's acidic environment. Day 6. You'll suddenly notice a fresh, pleasant sour smell, with no trace of the stale odor. Congratulations! The yeast and lactic acid bacteria have won the battle, and the unwanted bacteria have been controlled. The first stage of yeast cultivation is now complete. Next, we move on to the second stage, increasing yeast activity. There are 2 key points to this stage. 1. The primary factor influencing yeast activity is temperature, make sure to find a warm spot. 2. Don't let the yeast go hungry for too long. Once its nutrients are depleted, they need to be replenished. Here's how to proceed. Take out 10 grams of dough and add 10 grams each of water and flour. I'll switch to a clear cup so you can see better. Starting now, place a rubber band around the cup to observe the height change, which will help us check its activity and manage feeding intervals. Also, from this point on, collect the remaining dough and freeze it, as it no longer contains unwanted bacteria. After bacteria are controlled, yeast will grow and multiply faster than before. By day 6 evening, after about 7 to 8 hours, the dough have risen to its peak. If you look closely, you'll see it starting to fall slightly, indicating it's time to feed again. Since we'll be leaving it overnight, at least 12 hours, I'll increase the feeding ratio to 1 to 2 to 2. Place the rubber band on again. By day 7 morning, after about 12 hours, it have doubled in size with a slight deflation. I can feed it again. By now, the yeast is active enough. I'll continue feeding it at a 1 to 2 to 2 ratio, feeding it twice a day. After a week, the yeast is successfully cultivated. 2-stage process makes it clearer and simpler. If you don't plan to use the yeast for a while, here's how to store it. I usually freeze it. In a plastic container, mix 10 grams of yeast, 10 grams of flour, and 10 grams of water in a 1:1:1 ratio. After mixing, place it in the freezer, where it can be stored for several months to a year. When you're ready to use it, take it out the day before. You'll see it's frozen solid. Let it thaw at room temperature. Since it was fed before freezing, it has enough nutrients during the thawing process. After 24 hours, its volume have increased, with bubbles on the surface. When flip it over, you'll see even more bubbles underneath. It's alive and fermenting again. Smell it, and you'll recognize the familiar sour smell. Feed it again with a 1:1:1 ratio. Stir it, place the rubber band on. After 8 hours, it have doubled in size again. You see, after just one feeding, the frozen yeast is fully revived. If your yeast doesn't rise that much, you'll have to go back to the second stage for how to increase the yeast activity. Once you've grown natural yeast, you'll understand that it's a symbiotic system of lactic acid bacteria and yeast. The lactic acid bacteria gives sourdough its distinctive flavor and suppress the growth of harmful bacteria, while the yeast produces the bubbles that make the dough soft and airy. Natural yeast has the most natural and perfect leavening mechanism, which is why the tradition of sourdough has been passed down for thousands of years. Thank you for watching. I'm Gao, and see you next time.